Have you started your 15-year clock for your 529 plan? That's right, it's a new rule. I'll explain that and more coming up. My name's Mike Bernard. I'm the host of the Wise Money Show. I'm also one of the certified financial planners right here at Korhorn Financial Group. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and smash that thumbs up button. All right, new rule influenced. I took action. I don't know if you have yet. That's the purpose of this video. Is I want to make sure you take action to start the 15-year clock on the 529 plan. You might say, what in the world? What's the 15-year clock? Well, guys, this brand new rule doesn't even take effect until 2024. Let's get into it. Now, number one is you need to understand that with the 529 plan, so these are education savings accounts, college savings accounts, but they're for more than just college these days. But there are three different parties, people involved on 529 plans. Okay, there's a little bit of explanation before I explain the new rule in the 15-year clock. So three different parties are involved in every 529 plan. You have the owner. That's the person who's in charge, who's signing the documents and who has the authority to make investment changes and make withdrawals and those sorts of things. So you've got the owner, it's typically the parent. You then have a successor owner, okay? And I'm saying that really specifically because oftentimes we think of this as the beneficiary on other accounts. And that is the successor owner on a 529 plan is if the owner passes away, who's now in charge? Who's now in charge of the account? Who now has the authority to make withdrawals, sign, and all that sort of stuff? Typically, this is going to be one parent, the owner. The successor owner is going to be the other parent, okay? And then for a 529 plan, you then have the beneficiary. And in all other contexts, the beneficiary is who gets the money when the owner dies. In this case, it's whose benefit is this 529 account for. So who's the student? Who's the child who will actually be using this money for their educational expenses? That's the beneficiary. Now, each of those have to be listed on the 529 plan. They can be the owner and the beneficiary can be the same, or successor owner and beneficiary can be the same. Typically, that's not the case, but they can be. You can change the beneficiary, whenever you need to. So you've got to be aware of that. And then, biggest thing, we get this question all the time. You can't have two people listed within one category, meaning it can't be a joint account. You can't have, mom and dad both be the owner. It's got to be one or the other. And then if you have multiple kids, this is the key point, they can't both be listed as the beneficiary, okay? You've got to list just one child. And so typically if you have multiple kids, you either are opening multiple 529 plans or you did what I did, and that is, well, they're not all going to be in college at the same time. And, it's sort of messy to have a lot of multiple accounts. And so therefore, while they're young, no one's going to college anytime soon. We're not using this money for a long time. I'm just going to open up one in the oldest name and throw as much money as I can in that one. And then as they get closer to college age, that's when I'll split it up. That was the previous strategy. Enter the Secure Act 2.0, these rules that changed at the beginning of 2020, when it was voted in at the beginning of or end of 2022, takes effect 2024. So those are the three parties involved in the 529 plan. Now, the new rule within the Secure Act 2.0, in my opinion, within the 100 or so tax law changes, this is the biggest one. They now allow you to make a direct transfer from a 529 plan into a Roth IRA. That's right, from a 529 plan into a Roth IRA. Why would they do this? First question. That's because they've looked at the student loan crisis and they've said, well, if people saved up more money for college, then maybe people wouldn't rely on student loans as much. One of the best vehicle to save up for college is a 529 plan. But one of the disadvantages or negatives of the 529 plan is essentially if you don't use the money for college, then all of the tax sheltered growth on that money, when you withdraw it, it's now taxable and there's a little bit of penalty on that. So to me, that hasn't been a big detractor and prohibitor for people using the 529 plan. It was more of just a nuisance, something that you need to be aware of. Don't overfund your 529 plan. That was essentially the thought. It didn't mean people didn't save into the 529 plan, but Congress took aim at that and said, well, money that's left over in a 529 plan, you can transfer it into a Roth IRA, and therefore fund that 529 plan as much as possible, and if you don't use some of the money, then transfer it to the Roth. Love this tax planning strategy, okay? Because the 529 has typically been thought of as the Roth IRA, but for college, okay? Because the 529 plan, your contribution is after tax. Your state might give you a deduction. Indiana gives a tax credit, provides the best tax benefit out there of all states. But that's from a federal level, there's no tax benefit. Your contribution to the 529 plan is after tax. All of the investment, growth, and activity is all tax sheltered. So the dividends, capital gains, that doesn't land on your tax return every year. It grows tax deferred. And then when you withdraw the money, when you withdraw the growth, if it's for a qualified educational expense, and that includes room and board, okay, also includes computers, any required expense for the most part, then it comes out tax-free, okay? So that's how the 529 plan works. Well, that's essentially the exact same as the Roth. When you contribute to a Roth IRA, there's no tax benefit on your contribution. All the investment activity within it is all tax sheltered, so it grows tax deferred. And then when you withdraw that growth, you've had a Roth IRA for 5 years and you're age 59 and a half, so when you're eligible, you withdraw that growth, it's tax-free. So from a tax structure, the 529 and the Roth IRA are really identical, okay? Just one's for college, one's for retirement. So love the idea that now you're able to transition dollars from the 529 plan to the Roth IRA. Companies are working on the logistics of it. There's still some answers that we need from Congress and the IRS on how they're going to interpret some of the nuances of the rules. But this is a thing. The 529 to Roth IRA transfer is a thing starting 2024. All right, all of that was just to encourage you to start your 15-year clock. Why? Okay, and this influenced me to make some changes at the beginning of this year. One of the detailed requirements of transferring money from a 529 plan to a Roth is that you've needed to have the 529 plan open for 15 years. Now, their IRS could come up with some unique interpretations of this, but within the letter of the law, the 529 plan needs to be open for at least 15 years. The contribution that you make to the 529 plan, you can't transfer that contribution within the first 5 years to the Roth IRA. So it's not something where you can contribute to the 529 plan and then transfer it to the Roth right away. The contribution and the growth on that contribution has to stay in the 529 plan for 5 years. I don't know how they're going to track that, guys. There's a lot of this that the IRS has to come out and interpret, and we're still waiting to see. But essentially, we know the 15-year rule is going to be in place. And therefore, that strategy, if you were like me and you said, well, I've got multiple kids, they're different ages, I don't need a 529 plan for everyone when, I'll just use it for the first one, and then I'll change the beneficiary to the second one, and then I'll change the beneficiary to the third, and if you've got more kids, keep going. Well, now you should have a separate 529 plan for each of the kids, right? So for me, oldest is 13, I opened up a new 529 plan for the 10-year-old. I then opened up another 529 plan for the 5-year-old to start that 15-year clock for each of them. The 13-year-old, we've had her 529 plan for 13 years, okay? So we'll have met that 15-year requirement by the time she's out of college and that money has all been used up. The 10-year-old, well, that 15-year clock won't be until he's 25, so that's going to be a little bit interesting. But then the 5-year-old, add 15 years to that, he'll be 20, he'll be in college at that time, and therefore we'll have met that requirement. So this takes a little bit of proactive planning and extra forethought for this 15-year rule. So do you have young kids? Do you have young grandkids? Or you should start that 529 plan now to start that 15-year clock, even if you're just putting $100 in there or $1,000 in there. You've got to be aware of any annual maintenance expense or fees or something like that might eat into it. But should you start a 529 plan, just even a small one, to start that 15-year clock? Work with your certified financial planner on that, and then stay tuned to the Wise Money Show channel so that you're made aware as the IRS does come out and interpret some of the new rules. You're made aware of all the other nuances and details regarding this new financial planning strategy. Work with your CFP on that. If you don't have a CFP on your team, contact one on my team. Find us online, Korhorn.com. That's Korhorn with K, wisemoneyshow.com. You can find us there as well, or give us a call, 574-247-5898. All right, there you have it. Go out and take your next wise step in your financial life.